Hi everybody, today we're going to be working on our Lesson 3 e-text assignment on rocks. We have some guiding questions that we're going to be focusing on this lesson, and they are: what are the three main types of rocks and how do they form? How is the formation of rocks the results of the flow of energy and the cycling of matter within the earth? So really this lesson is going to be about the three main types of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. The similarities and differences between them, where they form, how they form, um, and the process they go through to change from one type to another. So some vocab words you should pay attention to are igneous rock, sedimentary rock, sediment, and metamorphic rock. First thing you're going to do is work on this connect it question. And it says, draw a outline of what the weathered rock may have looked like 2,000 years ago. So this is showing part of I think the Grand Canyon. And it didn't always used to look like what you see here. And it's saying, draw outline of what the weathered rock may have looked like in the past. So if you look at, this image, you can see it even better. You can see that we kind of have this tower here, and then all around it, there's nothing. So at one time, is it safe to say that there might have been layers of rock there that used to be there that were broken down and weathered away? So if we look at this example right here, are we going to have layers of rock that used to go across here like this, and they've just been eroded and weathered away over time? Then you have a question here that says, how do you think the rock formation will continue to change over time? So what if you come back to this place in 200 years from now? Is it going to look exactly the same? What things are going to look different, and why will they look different? Are we going to have this giant rock tower right here? Is that still going to be there? Is it going to be shorter? Is it going to be narrower? Is part of it going to have broken off over time? So one thing that we're going to learn a lot about in these next couple of units is about how the surface of the earth changes over time. That events such as weather and rain and wind and ice are able to break down the rocks over time and to change the surface of the landscape. So this first page, you're going to be reading about how we describe rocks. So they give the example in southern Utah of the spires and buttes, and they talk about what kinds of things we use to describe a rock, such as how are they changing, what are their shapes and sizes, how did they get there, how did they form. So we're going to be reading just a little introduction to about how we describe rocks. On the next page, you're reading about mineral composition and color. So in our last reading assignment, we learned about minerals, and we learned that minerals are naturally occurring, inorganic, are solid, and have a definite chemical structure. So in this picture, you're seeing the rock granite right here, and it's showing you that the different colors that are shown in the rock are actually different minerals. So a rock is just simply a mixture of minerals that have been stuck together. So that kind of shiny, kind of silvery colored mineral is mica. The white clear mineral is feldspar, and kind of the shiny, greasy looking mineral, that's quartz, and the black mineral is hornblende. So this is showing an igneous rock. So you're reading a little bit about how do we describe rocks. We describe rocks by what they're made out of, that's their composition. We describe rocks by their texture, and we don't look at necessarily if it's bumpy or smooth. We look at something called the grains, or the individual particles or minerals that make up the rock, and we look at the size of those, and that can tell us a lot about where it formed and how it formed. So on this page, I'd like you to do figure 2 after you read this. It says granite is generally made up of only a few common minerals. This coarse granite formed when magma cooled slowly. Circle the best word to complete each sentence. So if you read this page and look at the picture here, you should be able to complete the questions here. So it says claim, circle the best word to complete each sentence. Granite is generally a dark or light in color. So if we look at this as granite right here, you have to kind of judge. There are darker colored minerals and lighter colored minerals, but which of those do you see more of? Okay. It says granite has a high or low silica content. So silica is typically found in the mineral quartz and also feldspar. And if you read about that on this page, you'll be able to see what minerals and how much silica content granite will have. Then it says the grains in granite are fine or coarse. So fine means very small, that it's very hard to see the individual shapes and little crystals. And coarse means that they're large, you can see the shapes. And then number 3, it says explain how your evidence supported your claim. So you had to choose if granite was a very dark colored rock or a light colored rock. So you want to use the evidence that you just went through here to explain why you decided if granite was a light colored rock or a dark colored rock. And then at the bottom here, I want you to do this planet. It says, as part of the geological investigation you're conducting, you observed 3 rock samples. What characteristics would you examine to help you distinguish among the 3 rocks? So you just read about these things on this page: composition and color, texture, and origin. So those are some of the 3 characteristics of a rock you could look at to help describe it. On the next page, you're reading about, in general, how rocks form. The first type of rock you're reading about are igneous rocks. These are my favorite types of rocks. These rocks form either when magma is cooled inside the earth or when lava erupts on the surface of the earth and cools quickly. So you're reading about the different places where igneous rocks form. And there's a really nice diagram down here, and I'd like you guys to complete figure 3. And it says the texture of igneous rock varies according to how it forms. Did the rocks in the photographs form at A or B? So there's 2 locations where the rocks may have formed. So this is showing kind of the surface of the volcano after the lava erupts, and this is showing rocks that are cooling deep inside the earth. So you have to decide, you have to match A and B where they go. So maybe B goes here, maybe A goes here. Where do you think these 2 rocks formed? So take a look at the rocks, look at the size of the crystals and other clues, and from the reading, see if you can determine where those rocks formed. On the next page, you're reading about a whole completely different type of rock, and these are called sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rocks are basically rocks that form from bits and pieces of other rocks that are cemented and stuck together through a process. So make sure you pay attention to this diagram down here, and you're going to go through the steps of how a sedimentary rock forms, and it talks all about the different steps that occur, so you're reading about that. And then on the bottom here, you're going to do figure 4. I'd like you to complete this. It says sedimentary rocks form in layers that are then buried below the surface. Formations occurs through a series of processes over millions of years. Summarize how sedimentary rocks form by using the flow chart to sequence the following processes: transportation, compaction, cementation, weathering, and erosion. So you need to take these steps in the process and put them into the correct box where they go. So the very first step is weathering and erosion. So I'll put that in this box right here. So the first step is weathering and erosion. So you can finish those last couple boxes. And then number 2 says, which 2 processes turn layers of loose sediment into hard sedimentary rock? So what are the 2 processes that take the loose sediment that we have here and cement it and compact it into solid rock? All right, the next page you're reading about another really cool type of rock, and this is called metamorphic rock. Metamorphic rock forms when any other type of rock, like an igneous rock or a sedimentary rock is put under a lot of pressure and heat, and this can happen when rocks are basically when they're drugged down into the inner crust, maybe at a plate boundary where a plate is diving into the earth, which we'll be learning more about in our next unit. So I want you to read this page and then complete this reading check question here. It says, summarize text, explain the basic difference between igneous and metamorphic rock. And then I also want you to do figure 5. And it says, heat and pressure can change one type of rock into another. Label each rock sedimentary, igneous, or metamorphic. Indicate whether the metamorphic rocks are foliated. Foliated means that the rock has been put under pressure and the minerals line up kind of into a straight line. So this rock right here, it doesn't have lines in it. But this rock, gneiss, so when granite is put under extreme heat and pressure in the earth, this often happens when mountains have been forming, it can metamorphose and turn into gneiss, which is granite that has the minerals that have been rearranged and squished and put under pressure to form an entirely new rock. So I want you to read this page and see if you can figure out which rocks are foliated and which ones aren't. So you're going to name what type of rock it is, if it's going to be a sedimentary, igneous, or metamorphic rock. So this one, granite, because it's got crystals in it and it formed from magma, I'm going to call this one a igneous rock. Oops. And gneiss, I already told you that one. That one was a metamorphic rock. So I want you to determine these last two. What is marble and what is limestone? On the last page, you're going to be reading about how energy is transferring as rocks are formed, and what is the process of how energy moves from the earth and through rocks to create and form a rock. And then the last thing I want you to work on is figure 6. So it says, would you describe the processes that change the rocks making up this volcano as fast or slow? So if you look at this picture, and the lava and what it's doing, are the rocks going to be forming quickly or slowly? And then the last part is this reading check. So what are the sources of energy that drive volcanic processes? You do not need to do the math toolbox. We did something like that a few lessons ago. So if you guys have questions, send your science teacher a message, and we will talk to you later.